Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to our great event today. I would like to extend a special welcome to His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Abdullah Al-Hajeri, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain to the Republic of Indonesia. Happy International Women's Day to all incredible, powerful, and inspiring women all over the world. I am Quintus Regar, a gender and business specialist, and I'm honored today to be the master of ceremony for the great event. Thank you for participating fully here, physically and also virtually in our event today, which is organized collaboratively by Yayasan Hivos, the Embassy of the Kingdoms of the Netherlands, Jakarta, Indonesia, and the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection. International Women's Day is celebrated annually to recognize the contributions of women and girls to societies all over the world who are leading the change on social justice to build a more equal and sustainable future for all. It offers an opportunity to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determinations by women and girls who played an extraordinary role in the history of their communities and countries. The International Women's Day theme for 2022 is Break the Bias, which highlights the importance of challenging biases and misconceptions in the interest of creating a more inclusive and gender equal world. Our event today is going to emphasize women in charge for change in the spirit of celebrating women leaders, key milestones in bringing societal change in the sector that they lead. Aligned with the presidency of Indonesia in G20, the Women 20 is highlighting 4 key areas. First, the women inclusive economic empowerment. Second, women with disability rights. The third, health services access. And the last one, eliminating gender-based discrimination. Besides celebrating women leaders' achievement in leading the respective sectors and the societal impacts to advance gender equality, today, we would like also to share experiences, knowledge, best practices, challenges in women empowerment and leadership areas that hopefully can promote enabling environment for collaborations, awareness, and commitments. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ibu Tunggal Pawestri, the Executive Director of Yayasan Hivos, to give her opening remarks on International Women's Day 2022 and for today's event. Ibu Tunggal, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Queen. Excellency Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Ibu Bintang Puspayoga. Excellency Mr. Lambert Green, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Excellency Mr. Ahmed Abdullah Al-Hajeri, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain. Honorable Moderator and speakers, Vice Ambassador of the Dutch Embassy in Indonesia, Ibu Ardi Stoyus Braken. Member of Parliament, Ibu Irene Roba. Managing Editor Tempo, Ibu Purwanidiah Prabandari. Co-founder of Kopituli, Ibu Putri Santoso. Group Head of Sustainability GoTo, Ibu Tanah Sullivan. And also I saw Honorable Mr. Jamset M. Kamzi from UN Women in Indonesia. Respective government representative and civil society organizations, all distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first say Selamat Hari Perempuan Internasional, Happy International Women's Day. A very good day to all of you. It is a great honor for me to deliver welcoming remarks at this very important moment. A collaborative event between Yayasan Hivos, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Republic of Indonesia. We are now entering the 3rd year of pandemic, and also our 3rd year conducting meeting, discussion in an online or hybrid format like this. We have yet to return to normal life, but the world is indeed slowly getting back on its feet. Let me open this. It's very difficult to speak. It is such a privilege then to be able to meet all of you here in Erasmus Hus in person and I hope you and your family always in a good health. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, every 8th of March, we celebrate the International Women's Day. It is an important day to remind all of us that women in every part of the world are still fighting for their rights, and today's achievements are the result of collective works, resilience, and solidarity. We celebrate women's contribution to the sustainable development. This year, global theme for International Women's Day 2022 is Break the Bias. We know exactly that bias, stigma, and misconception can lead to gender-based discriminations and violence. Therefore, by challenging them, it is believed that it will strengthen our effort in advancing gender equality. Today, we will discuss about some challenges and best practices faced by women from various backgrounds in voicing their issues, influencing decision-making process, and promoting women's rights, especially now during the hard time, pandemic, when many things have been changed. Hence, I would like to say thank you and big appreciations to all of the speakers who are able to attend this event here in person. It will be such an honor to listen to your experience. It is also important to note that this year, Indonesia holds G20 presidency. 4 key themes have been highlighted by Women 20. Those are women's inclusive economic empowerment, women with disabilities rights, health service access, and eliminating gender-based discriminations. We expect that the discussion and focus to those thematic issues will bring real impact on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, I do sincerely hope that our event today will provide us with useful insights to achieve gender equality in Indonesia, particularly highlighting women leadership towards the world that free of bias, stereotype, stigma, and discriminations, a world that diverse, inclusive, and equitable. Lastly, thank you for your kind attention, and I hope you all find this today event is useful and resourceful. I thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Tunggal, for the opening speech. Now we would like to hear the keynote speech from the Minister for Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Ibu Bintang Puspayoga. Unfortunately, she cannot join us today in person, but she has prepared a video for her keynote speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, tentunya salam sehat untuk kita semua. Yang saya hormati, Bapak Lambert Grins, Duta Besar Kerajaan Belanda untuk Indonesia, Ibu Tunggal Pawestri, Direktur Eksekutif Yayasan HIPOS, para narasumber, moderator, serta hadirin sekalian yang saya banggakan. Puji syukur kita panjatkan kehadirat Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa, karena atas rahmat dan karunia-Nya kita masih diberikan kesehatan dan kesempatan untuk mengikuti talk show pada hari ini. Mengawali pidato kunci ini, saya mengucapkan Selamat Hari Perempuan Internasional kepada seluruh perempuan dimanapun berada. Merupakan suatu kebanggaan bagi kami, Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan dan Perlindungan Anak, dapat ikut berpartisipasi dalam kegiatan yang sangat relevan dengan semangat pembangunan nasional, yakni meningkatkan kualitas generasi penerus bangsa melalui pemberdayaan perempuan dan pengarus utamaan gender. Apresiasi setinggi-tingginya juga kami sampaikan kepada Kedutaan Besar Kerajaan Belanda di Indonesia, HIPOS, para narasumber dan partisipan talk show atas langkah nyata Bapak Ibu sekalian dalam menyuarakan pentingnya kontribusi perempuan dalam perubahan menuju masa depan Indonesia maju. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, Hari Perempuan Internasional atau International Women's Day yang kita peringati setiap tahunnya pada awalnya dirayakan di seluruh dunia untuk merayakan kontribusi perempuan-perempuan inspiratif dari berbagai bidang dalam membawa pengaruh dan perubahan positif bagi masyarakat di sekitarnya. Lebih lanjut, momentum ini juga dipakai untuk meningkatkan kesadaran masyarakat tentang perjuangan mewujudkan kesetaraan gender. Pelibatan perempuan dalam menyuarakan perubahan dan ambil peran dalam pengambilan keputusan hingga di tingkat terkecil seperti rumah tangga amatlah penting dalam mewujudkan kesetaraan gender demi mendorong pembangunan berkelanjutan. Hal ini juga sejalan dengan tema global peringatan Hari Perempuan Internasional tahun 2022, yakni Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Apalagi saat ini kita sedang dihadapkan pandemi COVID-19 yang membuat posisi perempuan semakin rentan. Sehingga keterlibatan perempuan dalam ambil peran melalui aksi nyata, khususnya dalam pengambilan kebijakan mengenai pengentasan dampak-dampak pandemi menjadi penting demi mewujudkan kesejahteraan bagi semua. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, Indonesia sejak awal terus mendorong pemenuhan hak-hak masyarakat secara adil dan merata. Dalam Konstitusi Republik Indonesia, Undang-Undang Dasar 1945, pemerintah secara tegas menjamin perlindungan dan hak-hak yang sama bagi seluruh rakyat Indonesia, baik laki-laki maupun perempuan. Berbagai regulasi juga telah dikeluarkan oleh pemerintah pusat sebagai acuan untuk meningkatkan kualitas hidup perempuan melalui pengarusutamaan gender dan perlindungan terhadap hak-hak perempuan. Sayangnya Bapak Ibu sekalian, berbagai indeks dan data masih menunjukkan ketimpangan antara perempuan dan laki-laki. Indeks Pembangunan Manusia IPM misalnya pada tahun 2020 menunjukkan angka 71,94 di mana IPM perempuan lebih rendah dibandingkan laki-laki yaitu 69,19 dibanding 75,98. Bahkan IPM laki-laki sudah masuk dalam kategori pencapaian tinggi sementara IPM perempuan masih dalam taraf sedang. Kenaikan IPM perempuan yang tidak signifikan ini membuat nilai Indeks Pembangunan Gender atau IPG nasional menurun menjadi 91,06 yang mengindikasikan melebarnya jurang kesenjangan gender pada hasil pembangunan pada tahun 2019 dibandingkan dengan 2020. Indeks Pemberdayaan Gender atau ITG pada tahun 2020 juga masih berada pada angka 75,57. Angka ini menunjukkan belum maksimalnya keterwakilan perempuan dalam parlemen, perempuan sebagai tenaga kerja profesional, kepemimpinan dan teknisi, serta belum optimalnya sumbangan pendapatan perempuan. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, adapun data-data ini bukan hanya sebatas paparan angka saja, melainkan menunjukkan realita yang masih perempuan hadapi di masyarakat kita saat ini. Dalam kehidupan sehari-hari, perempuan masih dihadapkan pada banyak tantangan. Pandemi COVID-19 juga telah membawa tantangan baru bagi kehidupan perempuan. Berdasarkan laporan dari UN Women tahun 2020, secara garis besar, meskipun perempuan dan laki-laki sama-sama terdampak, namun dampaknya lebih parah dirasakan oleh perempuan, baik dari segi pendapatan, kesehatan mental, beban ganda, maupun perlindungan sosial. Lebih lanjut, adaptasi normal baru disertai berbagai kebijakan pembatasan membuat perempuan semakin rentan dengan isu kekerasan, khususnya dalam lingkup rumah tangga dan online. Berdasarkan laporan yang masuk ke Simponi PPA untuk tahun 2019 sampai tahun 2021, terdapat 10.247 kasus kekerasan terhadap perempuan dengan jumlah korban 10.368. Demikian juga Komnas Perempuan tahun 2021 juga mengungkap peningkatan kekerasan berbasis gender cyber atau online atau KGBO berdasarkan data lembaga penyedia layanan, yakni dari 241 kasus pada tahun 2019 menjadi 940 kasus di tahun 2020. Adapun bentuk kekerasan yang mendominasi KGBO adalah kekerasan psikis sebesar 49% atau 491 kasus, disusul kekerasan seksual 48%, yaitu sebanyak 479 kasus, dan kekerasan ekonomi sebesar 2% atau 22 kasus. Jika ditelisik secara mendalam, Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, berbagai masalah yang masih melingkupi perempuan tersebut bukan terjadi karena perempuan lemah atau tidak mampu, melainkan akibat dari konstruksi sosial patriarki yang terbentuk dari berbagai cara pandang, sejarah, ideologi, dan budaya yang telah dijalankan selama turun-temurun yang menempatkan posisi perempuan lebih rendah dari laki-laki. Konstruksi sosial ini juga telah menciptakan berbagai kebiasaan, pola perilaku, kebijakan, dan cara pandang menjadi tidak adil atau bias gender. Dengan jumlah perempuan yang mengisi hampir setengah dari total populasi, situasi ini tentunya akan berdampak pada tingkat kualitas hidup sumber daya manusia Indonesia secara keseluruhan. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, atas dasar inilah kesetaraan gender turut mendasari gerak pembangunan nasional Indonesia. Tidak hanya berkomitmen untuk mendukung Sustainable Development Goal atau SDGs atau tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan hingga tahun 2030, Presiden Republik Indonesia Bapak Joko Widodo juga telah memberi mandat kepada Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan dan Perlindungan Anak untuk menyelesaikan 5 isu prioritas pemberdayaan perempuan dan perlindungan anak hingga tahun 2024, antara lain peningkatan pemberdayaan perempuan dalam kewirausahaan yang berperspektif gender, peningkatan peran ibu dan keluarga dalam pendidikan atau pengasuhan anak, penurunan angka kekerasan terhadap perempuan dan anak, penurunan pekerja anak, dan pencegahan perkawinan anak. Kami percaya bahwa penyelesaian kelima isu ini saling terkait, di mana isu prioritas nomor 1 menjadi hulu dari penyelesaian isu-isu prioritas lainnya. Lebih dari itu, Mastercard juga menyatakan di dalam laporannya bahwa partisipasi dan kesetaraan bagi perempuan di dunia usaha sangat penting dalam pemulihan ekonomi dunia pasca pandemi COVID-19. Pemberdayaan perempuan di bidang ekonomi juga akan memudahkan langkah kita dalam mencapai SDGs. Hal ini bukannya tanpa sebab. Berdasarkan UN Women atau Training Center, pendapatan dan daya tawar perempuan yang lebih tinggi karena pemberdayaan ekonomi akan berkontribusi terhadap investasi yang lebih tinggi dalam pendidikan serta kesehatan dan nutrisi anak. Hal ini pada akhirnya akan berdampak pada pertumbuhan ekonomi yang semakin berkelanjutan. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, tahun 2022 sendiri merupakan tahun yang amat penting. Mengingat tahun ini untuk pertama kalinya Indonesia megang mandat sebagai presidensi G20. Adapun G20 memiliki peran penting dalam pemulihan ekonomi global dari COVID-19 dan kemajuan kesetaraan gender. Tema utama G20 yakni Recover Together, Recover Stronger menyiratkan upaya kolektif untuk pulih dari pandemi global, dan hal tersebut harus mencakup perempuan dan anak perempuan yang telah terkena dampak pandemi secara tidak proporsional. Oleh karena itu, melalui W20, Indonesia memastikan strategi pemulihan terhadap isu kesetaraan gender, diantaranya isu inklusi keuangan digital sebagai rencana aksi dalam meningkatkan kontribusi perempuan terhadap pertumbuhan dan pembangunan ekonomi. Pemerintah Indonesia sendiri terus mendorong berbagai pihak untuk menciptakan inklusi sosial serta memajukan kesetaraan dan keadilan gender melalui berbagai komitmen dan praktik baik. Adanya pandemi COVID-19 yang sudah 2 tahun kita hadapi juga sama sekali tidak menyurutkan kerja keras dan semangat kita semua untuk memastikan pemberdayaan dan perlindungan kepada perempuan. Meski demikian, kerja-kerja ini tentunya tidak akan maksimal tanpa sinergitas dari stakeholder terkait. Untuk itu, pada kesempatan yang berbahagia ini, saya mengajak semuanya, baik itu pemerintah, tokoh masyarakat, tokoh agama, tokoh politik, lembaga masyarakat, dan organisasi pemerhati perempuan untuk membumikan kesetaraan gender dan ikut memastikan kebijakan atau program perlindungan perempuan termasuk pada kelompok marginal. Bersama-sama mari kita patahkan bias dan kesalahpahaman yang seringkali dilekatkan pada perempuan demi menciptakan dunia yang lebih inklusif dan setara. Sinergi dan dukungan dari semua pihak merupakan kunci dalam mewujudkan perempuan-perempuan yang berdaya, para ibu bangsa pembuat perubahan. Percayalah, langkah sekecil apapun jika dilakukan dengan bersama-sama, maka dampaknya pun akan luar biasa. Demikian beberapa hal yang dapat saya sampaikan. Perempuan berdaya, anak terlindungi, Indonesia maju. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya.
Such an inspiring and comprehensive speech from the Minister. Thank you, Ibu Bintang. We are now going to the core event, which is the talk show. Our speakers today are prominent Indonesian women leaders from diverse background and expertise. All attendants, online and offline, will have a chance to participate in question and answer and discussion sessions. Please write your questions in the chat box in the Zoom. The talk show is going to be moderated by Ibu Ardi Stoyos Braken, who is currently the Deputy Head of Missions of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Jakarta, Indonesia. She previously held some positions in India, Thailand, and Zambia, to name a few. Ibu Ardi, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Okay. Good afternoon. Selamat siang. Happy International Women's Day. It really is my pleasure to be moderating this talk show this afternoon. Happy because, as already has been mentioned also by previous speaker, there are many achievements that we can celebrate, but at the same time, it's also clear that many challenges have remained, and one of the reasons why these challenges have remained are the biases that already have been discussed. We talk about discrimination, we talk about misconceptions about what women are and do and can do. We talk about stereotypes. We're very pleased in the speech just delivered by the minister to note that Indonesia has a very clear agenda on what needs to be done for gender equality and empowering women in Indonesia. We're equally pleased that Indonesia also takes its role as G20 president very seriously and also wants to further the agenda for women's rights all over the globe. I think the motto recover together, recover stronger is a very apt motto to indicate that unless we include diverse perspectives, make sure that also voices otherwise unheard are taken into consideration, whatever recovery we have will not be sustainable. Maybe just zooming in a little bit on this G20, I'm sure you're pretty much aware that the G20 is a very important international forum. Okay, so where would you like me to move? This is all new to me, ladies and gentlemen. Here? All right, I'll try to not get the papers in your way. Zooming in on the G20, as I was saying, this is a very important international forum where the major economies of the world get together to discuss issues that are of influence on the economic stability, but also the political stability in the world. And the Netherlands is very pleased that the Indonesian government decided to also provide the Netherlands with a wild card so we can participate in all the relevant discussions. And the discussions that will take place in the women empowerment track, just like the discussions that will take place in the engagement group, the W20, are very relevant in the Dutch opinion, as indeed women's empowerment in the end will make the recovery that we're all so much are looking forward to need to happen in the world. What are we talking about? The issues at stake are very wide. They range from access to the labor market. They relate to equal wages, to living free from violence and living free from discrimination. Break the bias. That's the theme for this afternoon. And who else would it be better to talk to than powerful women here in Indonesia, women in charge for change. And we're very pleased to have 4 very powerful women to discuss the way in which these biases can be broken this afternoon on the stage. And I would first like to welcome to the stage Ibu Irene.
Thank you.
I will briefly introduce Ibu Irene. Maybe she's already well known to all of you. Ibu Irene is a member of the Parliament, the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, and she has been so since 2014. She's working on Commission 1 on issues like communication, defense, and foreign affairs. And she's not only trying to promote women's participation in public decision-making in Indonesia, but also in the region, within the ASEAN context, and even more widely within the Inter-Parliamentary Union. We've asked all members of the panel to come up with a quote, and I believe you have the quote with you, Irene. Can I ask you to read the quote, and then, if you don't mind, I will ask you some questions.
Okay, yeah. First of all, happy International Women's Day. Selamat siang. And this is the quote that I choose when I appointed to be women's political leaders ambassador, country ambassador for Indonesia. I believe political leaders have the power to inspire and accomplish transformational changes in society, including gender equality, through strengthening women's political and economic participation.
Thank you, Irene. There are many questions that I could ask about this quote, but let me start with this one. You say political leaders have the power. Can you give us some example where political leaders have actually used this power effectively?
Okay, please allow me to answer your question in Indonesia. Saya ingin memberikan jawaban itu dengan contoh simple bagaimana seorang political leaders bisa memberikan power. Jadi kita membayangkan seringkali di lingkungan area kita ataupun di tempat umum ada pembangunan yang terjadi. Kita ambil contohnya adalah pembangunan jembatan penyeberangan, di mana Anda bisa bayangkan jika pembangunan jembatan penyeberangan itu mulai dari perencanaannya hingga budgetingnya, belakangnya ataupun yang merencanakan ataupun yang menjalankan program itu semuanya laki-laki, tentu tidak akan ada pemikiran bagaimana seharusnya jarak antara anak tangga itu seberapa besar ataupun harus seberapa kuat pegangan yang dibangun untuk perempuan hamil ataupun perempuan yang mengenakan pakaian tradisional umpamanya kalau di Indonesia. Nah, hal-hal prinsip-prinsip seperti itu harusnya juga terjadi di program-program pemerintah pada umumnya. Saya beri contoh umpamanya di Komisi 1 yang tadi Anda sebutkan, saya bermitra dengan Kementerian Komunikasi dan Informasi, di mana dari anggaran 2021 hingga 2024 itu sekitar 600 miliar rupiah yang dianggarkan untuk literasi digital. Pertanyaan yang selalu saya tanyakan kepada Pak Menteri adalah, seberapa banyak perempuan yang ikut partisipasi dalam hal itu? Seberapa banyak perempuan yang mendapatkan afirmasi dalam program literasi digital? Nah, yang ingin saya katakan dalam quote itu adalah harusnya perempuan selalu ada dan bersuara dalam setiap pengambilan keputusan publik. Kenapa? Karena separuh dari penduduk Indonesia itu adalah perempuan. Dan kita tahu bahwa tradisionalnya politisi adalah laki-laki, di mana mungkin tidak memikirkan aspek-aspek yang dibutuhkan perempuan. Jadi melalui quote itu saya hanya ingin mengatakan bahwa suara perempuan sangat dibutuhkan dalam pengambilan keputusan publik dan suara perempuan harus didengar. Gitu.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we will be touching on some of the aspects that you've already covered in this answer later on in more detail during the panel discussion. May I invite you to take your seats? Next, we have a representative from the media sector, Dari. Dari, may I invite you to come to the stage? Dari is a prominent leader in the media sector, and she has been covering stories coming from conflict areas for many, many years, varying from the terrorist attacks in 2015 in France, but also conflicts in Malaysia, the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, and many, many other places of conflict in the world. Right now, Dari serves as the managing editor for Tempo English Weekly and also the English edition of Tempo. Dari, may I also ask you to share the quote that is meaningful for you with the audience?
Yes. I write this quote: women are often marginalized because the patriarchal culture is still rooted in society. Together, we can get rid of it and build a diverse and equal culture, because we are the ones who shape the culture, not the other way around.
Thank you, Dari. You also touch on the patriarchal society. The minister in her introduction also touched on the role of patriarchy.
Yeah.
Can you, and I would like you to try to be brief, since we also need to introduce the other speakers. What, in your opinion, makes this patriarchy so persistent?
Because this culture has been here for a long time, I mean, in the society, and it's really difficult to change. And we can see in the big picture, of course, in the public arena, that still there is a limitation of women number in the public arena. It's not only that, even in the family, there's still women still marginalized. And this is, as I said, that actually that we can change because we have the right. We can do something. It's not the culture that it's trapped us here. We can do something for that. But of course, we cannot do by ourselves. Just us, just me, just you. So we have to work together. Even that we have to involve men and other sectors, or probably other genders, to change this, to shape the new culture, the diverse and equality culture.
Thank you so much. And I like that you also mentioned the importance of the role of men. I'm very happy to see at least a few men in the audience here in Erasmus House, but hopefully also many more in the audience that has joined us virtually this afternoon.
There is a movement, new men movement, I think. That's Aliansi Laki-Laki Baru, there is organization for that.
Maybe we inspire men to do so. Thank you for now. Can I ask you to please take your seat as well? Third, we would like to ask Putri to come to the stage. In a very different way, Putri is also a very powerful woman and an example, a role model for many people with disabilities in Indonesian society. Putri was rejected many a time when she was applying for jobs, although she holds a very good degree in visual communication design. And her response to these rejections was to take her own initiative and establish Kopi Tuli. This is a coffee shop, which is where the staff is all deaf people. And by having this coffee shop, she hopes to increase awareness among people who can hear for the problems of deaf people. And she, more in a general sense, wants to contribute to the empowerment of deaf people and promote their employment through the foundation, Sampa Guita Foundation, that she also co-founded. Putri, we've also asked you to come up with a quote.
Yeah, hello. Okay, so my quote is, though I'm alone, I'm somebody. I cannot do all things, but I can do something. I can't deny things I'm capable of. So I was inspired by Helen Keller because she is deafblind, but she can do something for her.
Thank you very much. What I hear in your quote, Putri.
Once more, for deaf people, we are not clapping like all you did, but we clapping like this by waving our hands because we cannot hear. So we waving our hand, not clapping our hands.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to ask for a question based on your quote. To me, it expresses a very personal experience in the journey that you've made to be where you are right now. Can you share a little bit what kind of biases you had to overcome to reach your current status?
Okay. As a woman, actually, I have two identities. I'm a woman and I'm a deaf person. So the hard things that I experience is because I have double identity. And how I can show my capabilities, because a lot of women still afraid to show what they can, and they are better than men. So we are trying our best to prove that we can do anything, and we can, for instance, make a business, and we can also developing deaf people as well. So I can developing deaf people, so we can be equal with others.
Thank you very much, and indeed you must be an inspiration to many of us this afternoon, indeed having overcome two types of different stigmas or biases, as a woman and as a deaf person. Thank you so much. Please, can I ask you to also take your seat? Fourthly, as a last member of the panel, we have Tana. Tana, can I ask you to come to the stage? Tana represents the private sector. She is a part of the Go2 Foundation, and she was the one who oversaw the launch of the first Gojek sustainability report. And in this report, Gojek introduced 3 commitments: 0 emissions, 0 waste, and 0 barriers. And obviously the last one is the one that we would like to be focusing on this afternoon. Tana is working on issues of 0 barriers for women and for other unrepresented groups in society, both within her own organization, but also internationally, as Gojek has also become part of an international alliance called the Valuable 500 Pledge. And this alliance is working towards improving access to products for users and partners who are visually or hearing impaired. Tana, you also came with a beautiful quote. Please.
So, my quote, "A diverse, equal, and inclusive culture creates an innovative, resilient, and responsible company."
Now, I was curious, is this a quote of your company, or is it also has it maybe become your personal quote?
Well, I think it's always been somewhat part of my personal mantra and mandate in terms of any organization that I've worked at. But it's also equally our company's culture. We've worked very, very hard to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion best practices into our company, the way we operate, the way we set up our policies and our practices, and our governance structure as well, to make sure we're equal in terms of gender representation, in terms of pay, and in terms of the policies that really matter and affect equitable treatment within our company for both women and men. So I think that's something we're incredibly proud of.
Thank you so much, Tana. Please take your seat. I realized while I was introducing the full panel members that I forgot to say something during the introductory part, and that is that obviously we're not just here because there are issues in Indonesia. I think I referred to the issues at the global scale internationally and why therefore the G20 is important, but I also find it important to say that the Netherlands also still has many issues to tackle, and therefore an exchange like we have this afternoon is equally important for Dutch people to learn about your experiences and to see then whether those best practices could also be of value to the Netherlands. Let me briefly give two examples of issues in my own country. In September, the new government decided to introduce a quotum for the percentage of women that have to be on the boards of major companies. Unfortunately, trying to get to such an equal representation within major companies naturally didn't happen, and therefore the government felt the need to introduce a quotum that will be enforced, and that also requires companies to develop a clear strategy how to come to that percentage. Closer to home, in the last couple of weeks within my own Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there has been a debate on the appointment of women ambassadors at the top. Unfortunately, so far, we've seen that there are certain positions, really the major top positions within our ministry, that so far have not been taken up by women. This is not because there are not enough women who could do the job, but somehow also within an organization like my own ministry, there are still unconscious biases. So, just another example to show that we're all in this struggle together and that we need to exchange our experiences and share the problems that we're facing, because there's still a lot of work to be done. For the rest of this afternoon, we have basically 4 pillars for the talk show. We will delve a little bit further into the role of role models. The 4 women that are sitting here on the stage, I think in different domains, very much function as role models, and we would like to hear more about what that means. Obviously, it's also important to look at the challenges that remain. Why is it still difficult for women to attain top positions, to achieve gender equality in so many aspects of life? We also want to have a more positive approach. What are the things, the issues, the policies, the frameworks that have worked? What are the best practices that you could share? And then lastly, and maybe it's also something we all in the audience, here in the room, but also the people attending virtually, can reflect on: what is it that we individually hope to do to contribute to an improvement of the women's position in society, gender equality in general, in the coming year? Obviously, there are small things that we all can do, which also will make a difference. And let me repeat that if you have questions, people in the audience, do let us know through the chat box. Now, I will also sit down, and like I said, we will start zooming in on the power of role models. And I will start with Irene. Everyone will take a turn. You are part of an establishment which traditionally is considered the environment for middle-aged men. Can you tell us what inspired you to become part of this scene and whether you had any role model yourself to take on this position in politics?
Oh, ya, terima kasih. Kenapa saya masuk ke politik dan siapa yang menginspirasi? Mungkin pertanyaannya seperti itu ya. Jadi mungkin saya sedikit bercerita sebelum saya bergabung ataupun saya terjun ke politik, saya memiliki kesempatan untuk keliling Indonesia dan juga bertemu dengan banyak orang hebat seperti para narasumber di sini gitu. Tetapi satu poin yang saya temukan adalah beberapa pemikiran hebat dari orang-orang yang saya temui itu seringkali tidak terdengar gaungnya. Jadi ada satu momen di mana saya berkesempatan mewawancarai salah satu kandidat PhD yang sekolah di Melbourne University. Seperti Mbak Putri, dia juga mengalami banyak sekali tantangan ketika dia ingin melanjutkan sekolah, tetapi fasilitas untuk berkebutuhan khusus, orang-orang berkebutuhan khusus itu tidak dipenuhi oleh sekolah, sehingga lama sekali waktu yang dibutuhkan untuk dia menyelesaikan jenjang S1. Beda sekali dengan fasilitas yang diberikan di negara-negara maju seperti Australia. Dari situ saya berpikir bahwa harus ada sebuah gerakan ataupun movement yang bisa meneruskan ataupun menggelorakan suara-suara kebaikan ataupun perjuangan-perjuangan yang terkadang itu mengalami kendala. Itu juga saya alami ketika saya berpergian banyak karena kebetulan saya waktu itu berkesempatan membuat film dokumenter tentang bawah laut, sehingga saya banyak sekali bertemu dengan para masyarakat yang tinggal di daerah rural area di mana mereka membutuhkan banyak sekali fasilitas ataupun mereka merasa ditinggalkan oleh negara. Di situ saya berkeyakinan bahwa harus ada sesuatu ataupun gerakan untuk mengubah nasib mereka. Dan saya meyakini bahwa politik adalah jalur yang paling efektif dan paling cepat di dalam membuat sebuah keputusan besar ataupun keputusan baik yang bisa berdampak secara nyata ataupun berdampak secara luas bagi masyarakat. Jadi pengalaman saya di masa lalu yang melihat banyak sekali perbuatan baik ataupun gelombang arus kebaikan belum maksimal, di situ saya ingin membantu menyuarakan suara-suara itu, dan saya pikir politik adalah jalur yang saya tempuh, dan syukur saya merasakan bahwa dalam jalur ini saya bisa menyambung ataupun menjembatani suara-suara yang dari masyarakat yang saya wakili. Mungkin gitu. Terima kasih. Semoga menjawab.
Thank you. So I'm just curious then whether there was also a woman within Indonesian society or perhaps elsewhere that gave you the courage to step into a domain that was not traditionally the domain of women?
Pastinya Ibu Megawati yang menginspirasi dalam hal ini. Kita punya presiden pertama perempuan dan hari ini juga kita punya ketua parlemen perempuan pertama gitu. Bagaimana perjuangan perempuan, saya pikir tadi bahwa perempuan harus didengar, perempuan harus perempuan juga harus mengambil posisi dalam banyak keputusan politik. Saya pikir itu yang mengencourage ataupun memicu saya untuk berani bersikap ataupun mengambil suara dalam hal ini.
Thank you, Irene. Moving to the media sector, another domain that is not known traditionally for being an environment very attractive for women to work in. Dari, I'm very curious. Were there perhaps any role models that helped you to overcome the challenges that I imagine you had to overcome to be where you are within the media that you represent?
Thank you. Actually, it started when I was a kid. I loved to read newspaper. And then I thought at the time, it's really cool to be journalists, that we can walk, we can travel, we can see a lot of people, important people. It's really interesting. But then when I grew up, sometimes it's changed, of course. And then I took international relations in the university. And then at the time, I don't know if this is the decision from the ministry or from my campus at the time. And then when I graduated from the university, there is like a discrimination, not to women, but it's like there is minimum hate on the announcement. But it's like, oh, this is not good. And then it's I also already involved in the NGO at the time in the university. So I think it's like what kind of work that it's I can get the freedom, independent, voicing the voiceless, and it's really good if we can make impacts. And then I think, okay, that's the journalist. I know that it's really hard, of course. It's when I first worked as a journalist in Bernas in Yogyakarta. That's a quite fearless, independent media in Yogyakarta at that time in 1997. So I work in the international desk, so I had to work until late, of course, 12 at night, so it's not normal. It's not common for women at the time. And then through media that I work, it's quite fearless, independent. It's like after Bernas, I worked for Tempo. And at the time when I moved to Tempo, Tempo magazine was not published again. So I worked for Tempo Interactive. Tempo was banned in '94, right? And then a year later, they create the online media, like it's Tempo Interactive. So I joined with Tempo Interactive. So of course the new orders didn't like it. It's really hard, but it's really nice because I mentioned before, I try to get the freedom, independence, then voicing the voiceless, and it's really good to make an impact.
Given the path that you had to walk and the challenges that you had to overcome, now you've reached a position where perhaps you can make the path for younger women more easy. Do you indeed feel that that is what you can do, and how do you do that, or do you still face opposition from male colleagues within your organization?
You know that everyone has dream, I'm sure, even since kids, and then even when you already grow up and you graduate from university, you have a dream, you have the job that you want to do something. And then the thing that you can pursue it and you can get it, you can get success on the work that you want. We can overcome the challenge, of course, if we do our work really hard and work well. So all the challenge that we can overcome, make me or make everyone get success or at least get the current position.
Thank you. Moving to the private sector, to Putri Kopituli.
Yeah.
I am curious again, you must have been facing many obstacles. Have there been women in your life that helped you to keep going and to overcome these challenges? Please.
Well, okay, hello again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Putri, or T. So as I mentioned before, that I have two identities, as a woman and as a deaf person. And it's very hard because in Indonesia, for instance in Jakarta, especially, deaf women never open or make any business before. So I used to make a workshop for 700 disabled women, and I think I want to what I want to do in the next future. What is my plan actually? And a lot of deaf person is hard to get their job opportunities. So I think how I can solve these problems and what is the good business for deaf person to get job. And I thought at that time, making a cafe is a good opportunity, but I'm afraid because a lot of cafes is opened in Jakarta, and I found what our uniqueness and what makes our coffee shop is different from others. And I think Kopi Tuli or deaf coffee is made by deaf person and to developing deaf person as well. So it is from deaf to deaf person, and we choose deaf as we choose coffee because coffee is media for communicating. So we break through the barriers, and our mission is making 3 programs. The first one is education, and so we want to socialize Indonesian Sign Language from deaf person to hearing person to learn sign language. So when whoever coming to our store, they will interact with us and learn sign language by themselves with our workers. So when they buy coffee, they meet the cashier that they are a deaf person. Yeah. And our second program is humanity, to show that deaf people can do anything, like hearing people. Whether they are man or woman, we are equal in our store. And as disabled person or not, we are still equal. So we want to show that. And our menu, we show it by we show it by showing a different or unique name which relate to environment or nature, because we want to make interaction between hearing and deaf person. For instance, daun susu, daun means leaves and susu means milk. So yeah, we want to explain hearing people that ask us what is daun susu means. So we will explain them. Daun that we are mentioned in our menu is actually matcha. So the person that wants to buy our coffee, they will understand. Oh, okay. So daun doesn't mean all daun. You made it as a beverage. And we break through the barriers so they can understand what our language is, because actually we want to show to others that we are just the same like you, all hearing people. Yeah.
So in a way, I believe you're both a role model for people within the deaf community, but also for people who are not deaf, because you show them how you can overcome something which on a surface level looks very complicated.
Yeah. So the barrier between deaf person and hearing person is just communication, because we want to make the barriers disappear, and we want to introduce people, and we want to make hearing and deaf person is closer with our way of communication, because if hearing people understand us, they might communicate with us. So actually we learn together, right? So yeah.
A literal example of breaking the barriers. Thank you, Putri. Moving to Tana. Tana, you represent a different, diverse background, since you have, I believe, Canadian and Indonesian nationality, or at least you have been living in both countries. I'm just curious, in terms of role models, would you say that there is a difference in who are considered role models in Canada from those who are considered role models here in Indonesia?
Great question. I'm part Canadian, part Indonesian. I actually grew up in neither country. I grew up in 5 other countries. And I think that gave me a very privileged and unique opportunity to experience what it meant to be a girl and a woman in these different cultures and these different environments. I can tell you one thing is that consistently, women, no matter the culture, no matter the environment, are constantly pegging their value on how others perceive us or how we serve others. I, for example, am not a good woman leader. I'm just a good leader. Mm-hmm. I am not just a good mom to my kids or a good wife to my husband or a good daughter to my parents. I'm a good person. And I think these are the types of conversations that no matter the language you speak, we continue to have today. And that's the problem that I see. And so when you ask me about role models, I mean, I can name you all kinds of female leaders that I think are doing, and allies that are doing incredible things in terms of achieving gender parity within their respective roles. But it's still not good enough. Yeah. The World Economic Forum, it's my previous job was at the forum, issues a gender gap index every year. There is not one country in the world, not even Finland and Iceland and Norway and all those that are supposed to be at the top, who've achieved true gender parity, which means we still have a long way to go. By the forum's accounts, 135 years to be exact, if we stay on this current trajectory. So for me, all the role models in the world will not change the fact that our system is inherently set up to disadvantage us. And I'm not asking for that much. I'm not asking for special treatment. I just want equal treatment. Mm. And I think that as an organization, no matter whether you're public sector, whether you're private sector, they need to start walking the talk. If you are a male leader and you say you're committed to gender equality, then give female leaders the space to be there, to take up that space, right? Whether it's in meetings, allowing the space for women to be able to voice their opinions and share their perspectives, whether it's committing to doing things like a gender pay audit. If you are afraid of doing a pay audit in your own company to understand exactly the gap, because there is always a gap. The gap between what women and men are being paid for the same roles in your company or your organization or your ministry or what have you, then there's a real problem. You are not truly committed to gender equality. So I think all this to say, there's a system-wide problem and we still haven't yet quite cracked it because we are still having these kinds of conversations on panels like this, on days like this. What happens the rest of the year? That's my perspective.
No, I think a very strong but also very valid message. And if I interpret what you're saying correctly, you're also saying this should not be the conversation that mostly women have amongst one another. This is a conversation that we need to have with the men in our society, because without their support, we will not reach what we need to reach.
Exactly, 100%.
Thank you. From all 4 panelists. I know that there is a question from the audience, and this is from the organization Hope Helps. And this group is a group of young people who are building a helpline for victims of sexual violence in universities. And as many of us know, this has been an issue, a very topical issue in Indonesian society of late. And I would like to hear from Graciela Tabita with her question. Graciela, can I give you the floor?
Hello everyone, my name is Graciela Tabita, Director on Media and Propaganda of Hope Helps Network, and here are my questions. My first question is, why is women's leader achievements still needed to be celebrated even after years of gender equality? And my second question is, what is the best way to celebrate it in order to increase public awareness and commitment about the Women 20 agenda? That's all for me. Thank you so much and happy International Women's Day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Graciela. Just to make sure that everyone heard the question correctly, I will just repeat it. Graciela's question was, why is it that women's achievements still need to be celebrated even after years of gender equality? I'm not sure, I guess gender inequality. What is the best way to celebrate it in order to increase public awareness and commitment about the Women 20 agenda? I think of a question that all four of you could reflect on and provide an answer to. I'm going to take a different order, and I'm going to start with Dari.
Okay. I think we still should celebrate it because, you know, the equality, I know that there is improvement, of course, the existence of women in the public spaces. And, but still, that's not a lot. I mean, it's like in the parliament, I think that's the number of women, it's just like a 20%. Yeah. Right. And then in the cabinet, it's less than, probably it's about 15%.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in the media, Tempo in 2018, I think, there we had a survey about the women sources in the media, in, I forget it's so many media, it's a couple media, probably it's more than 10 media. It's only 11% of the sources are women. So, I mean, it's still so small. Even we agree that there is improvement, but still the number is showing it's just a little. And it's also, if there is an improvement, I think it's a privilege in some area, probably in Jakarta, in the other big city, but in the region it's still not. So if there is achievement of women, good achievement, then we have to celebrate it. And actually we have to shout it out that everyone can listen to it and then inspire others. That's my idea.
Maybe connecting your comment just now with Tana's earlier on, then maybe we should celebrate it not just once a year, but we should celebrate whatever achievement is there on a more frequent basis, and to make people more aware of all these different challenges that have been overcome.
Yeah, I think that we should talk over and over again. So if we don't talk it, we just silent, it's like, oh, that's nothing. Even that we succeed, it's nothing. It's just a small achievement. And then it's just not bring the inspiration to others. So we have to talk about it. We have to discuss about it. And we have to widespread about this success. And we can talk and talk again.
Right. Maybe then also connecting earlier statements by you, Irene, the political domain. What can you do, or what do you do to also make men within the political domain part of this conversation? Do you have male colleagues who also are championing the same causes the way you do?
It's a hard question. Tapi sebelum saya menjawab pertanyaan itu, saya hanya ingin menjawab pertanyaan sebelumnya, mengapa kita masih terus harus merayakan pencapaian-pencapaian yang dilakukan oleh perempuan. Karena tadi seperti kata Mbak Diah, ya udah dijelaskan cukup banyak bahwa hari ini perempuan masih banyak sekali mendapatkan tantangan terhadap apapun eksistensinya. Tadi dikatakan Mbak Diah bahwa anggota parlemen perempuan periode 2019-2024 itu meningkat, Mbak. Yang periode lalu 17, sekarang 20%. Yang artinya ada 118 anggota parlemen perempuan. Tetapi yang menjadi masalah bukan hanya kita bukan menjadi masalah, tetapi walaupun sudah meningkat anggota perempuannya, tetapi itu tidak berjalan seiringan dengan perannya. tidak berjalanan seiringan dengan keputusan publik ataupun undang-undang ataupun kebijakan yang kita buat di dalam gedung parlemen. Mengapa? Karena tantangan kesetaraan itu dihadapi oleh perempuan dimanapun mereka berada. Bahkan saya yang sudah 2 kali terpilih menjadi anggota parlemen pun masih menjadi pertanyaan mengapa seorang Irin perempuan bisa terpilih menjadi anggota perempuan. Jadi membawa misi ataupun melawan ketidakadilan gender dalam bentuk budgeting ataupun dalam bentuk policy itu adalah pekerjaan yang masih sangat berat. Seringkali kami anggota DPR perempuan mendapatkan pertanyaan, kalau rapat malam begini siapa yang ngurus anak? Menurut saya itu adalah pertanyaan seksi. Hal itu tidak akan ditanyakan oleh kepada anggota DPR laki-laki. Kita sampai larut malam membahas policy, kita sampai larut malam membahas rancangan undang-undang. Ataupun kalau boleh sedikit curhat gitu. Seringkali saya mendengar lawakan dari teman-teman partner saya di DPR mengatakan bahwa most likely kalau anggota DPR perempuan itu rumah tangganya pasti tidak oke, karena perempuan yang memiliki uang dan punya kuasa pasti bertingkah. Itu bukan seksis lagi, itu misoginis. Itu saya temukan dan itu menurut saya apa yang dikatakan oleh Mbak Tanah itu menjadi sangat relevan gitu. Jadi akan sangat mudah bagi saya menjawab bahwa hari ini kita harus bersatu padu melawan ini semua dan kita membutuhkan teman laki-laki yang juga ikut di dalam gerbong perjuangan ini. Tetapi memang perlu diakui ini adalah pekerjaan yang sangat berat sekali untuk menyatakan bahwa keberadaan perempuan harus setara dan apapun keputusan publik itu harus menyetarakan perempuan. Jadi itu kondisinya di dalam DPR, tetapi kita tidak boleh patah semangat karena bagi saya hari ini kita sudah melangkah paling tidak satu langkah lebih baik karena kaukus perempuan yang ada di gedung parlemen sangat solid dan kita berharap sekali bahwa banyak sekali juga kita tercerahkan ataupun mendapatkan masukan mengenai bagaimana sih sebenarnya mewujudkan kesetaraan gender dalam hal budgeting ataupun policy di dalam gedung parlemen yang implementasinya bagi masyarakat banyak gitu.
Thank you, Irene. I could imagine, since there have been so many studies that also point out that the results of a more inclusive decision-making, budgeting, in the end produces more results. Maybe those are the arguments that we have to present to men to make them our allies, because in the end they will benefit as well.
I agree.
Okay, but I think our conclusion here on the stage is that although it's important to have one day a year to specifically focus on the achievements that have been made, it's also very important to continue to have the conversation on a day-to-day basis about the challenges that we are still facing, the biases that we're still encountering, and the way in which we can make progress, not just in the interest of us as women, but in the interest of society at large. Moving to the next part of our program, the one talking about best practices and experience that hopefully can also inspire members of the audience. And I would like to start with Dari. What can you share with us about the way in which within Tempo you have been able to break some of the barriers and address some of the biases that you have been facing?
Well, Tempo actually is quite male media.
Mm-hmm.
The readers still more men. And then the HR, the people in the editorial teams, it's majority still male, especially in the leadership. So it's like right now, there is no chief editor in Tempo because woman chief editor in Tempo. We have Tempo magazine, we have Tempo English weekly also. We have Quran Tempo and we have Tempo.co. And then Tempo English, Tempo.co, it's a part of the Tempo.co. And then there is no woman chief editor there. And then even in my level, in the managing editor, the data last year is just one. So it's just me. So it's quite difficult. But still, there is awareness in Tempo about the value of diversity, equality, and inclusivity, especially because we involve a lot of female or women journalists in many difficult assignments. So, like everyone the same. You mentioned before that I went to East Timor, I went to Myanmar and smuggling to the isolation area. So it's something that it's a lot of, I think it's all journalists in Timor, although the women, they have like those kind of experience. So it's really breaking the limits about their capacity as a journalist. So that's the experience that we break the law sometimes. So it's like I mentioned that I smuggled to the isolation area in Myanmar. And then sometimes we have to run in the shooting because of the conflict. That's quite challenging. And I think we reached the limit, or probably crossing the limits that we can do. And but the good things that I mentioned before, there is awareness. And then also Tempo joined the project that is led by BBC, the 50-50, the diversity project, that we try to improve the presentation of women in the media, I mean, especially as sources. So we try to improve the situation. And then we also talking about anti-sexual harassment protocol in the workplace. Of course, it's still a new thing, so I just talked with some friends about that, and then probably we try to do something on that. So it's breaking the limits, and it's also try to improve the situation.
Right, thank you. And also making topics, opening the space to discuss topics that perhaps would not be brought to the table by men.
Yeah, of course. But we also give our opinion on that. And then I have a new program that is Tempo Talks, that's a talk show that I produce. And then I really try that I put men and women sources in this program balancedly. So, and it's also especially in the issue of the article, of course, the report that we make. It's like we cannot do like a sexist writing, of course. Sometimes it still happens once or twice, but it's the evaluation is quite hard. So it's like there is autocritic in Tempo. If we do something, if we have a big critic of the news or article, and then we can do that. So the evaluation, it's always happen. We try to make a better situation in the editorial team, and it's also in the media itself.
Thank you. So at different levels within your own community, but then also for the sector as such. Thank you.
In the article that we make, of course.
Turning to Putri. As we've learned, you had to overcome biases both as a woman, but also as a deaf person. I'm curious, what are the experiences that you can share that would also be relevant for other type of marginalized groups?
To be honest, I'm still learning because I'm not really understand well about women's problem or feminist issues. So in my business, we have 3 co-founders, including me, and 2 others are men. So we are prohibiting the challenges between us, or we might fight each other. So as a woman, I teach other co-founders to understand about my needs as a woman, deaf woman. So also the baristas that work with us, we also welcome women baristas. So not all baristas are men. So I want to show to others that deaf women can work as barista as well, like a man. And the society should break the barriers and also banishing the bias between hearing and deaf groups. Because currently a lot of companies is not accepting deaf as their workers because they are afraid they might have miscommunication between them and deaf people. And also the wages between deaf and hearing is different. But actually we can still work like hearing people, so we can have the same wages as them. And I want to show them that I can do business like I have a foundation for people to show that deaf people and me as a woman can do like you, making a foundation and also business. Yeah.
Thank you. Tan, I want to turn again to one of your 3 commitments, the 0 barriers. Because I think this could inspire many of us. Can you give us a few concrete examples what it is that you do to help women grow and move up on the ranks? What is it that you do?
Sure. So 0 barriers has 2 dimensions for us. One is internal within our company. So it's about integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of our company culture from practice to policy. The second is external. So we have an incredible ecosystem of millions of merchants and partners, drivers, users that use either Gojek or Tokopedia every single day. And so for us, I think with the size and the reach we have a responsibility to ensure that women have the same access as men and the same opportunities as men, whether they are merchants or sellers, whether they are drivers, whether they are users, on top of all the other underrepresented groups we believe who use our platforms every day. And so some of the concrete examples on the first part, being internal, includes setting up things like proper grievance mechanisms, which means that if I, as an employee, regardless of my gender, if I feel like I am harassed or bullied or anything at work that I want to be able to escalate, there's a safe, a confidential, and an independent channel for me to do that. And that I know that I will be heard and acknowledged and it will be actioned. There's other elements, for example, like our employee resource groups. This is a relatively new thing we set up in 2020. So employee resource groups are really employee-led bodies within our organization to be able to have a collective voice on any agenda, whether it be gender equality, whether it be what it's like to be a working mom or working dad. And the idea is that you can, through these bodies, recommend policies or recommend things to leadership that you believe need to change within our company because you believe in our company and you want to be there. And so I think these are really important channels. These are just some examples. These are really important channels to support not just this generation of employees, but the next generation of employees, so that they really feel like they are co-owning the future of our company as it relates to either policies or practices. So the idea here is really that everyone has a voice, everybody's perspective is valid, and that we really do believe that everyone should be able to come to work and be their whole selves, whether it's based on gender or any other indicator. The second component as it relates to external, our entire ecosystem, I mean, we have, I'm not gonna name them, but we have a laundry list of programs that are focused, for example, on our women entrepreneurs who are merchants. We deal with and work with ultra micro SMEs. These are the majority of our merchant base, which means these are not big enterprises with a lot of resources. And so for us, it's really about honing in on the female-owned businesses, the female entrepreneurs, ensuring that they have the same tools and access as their male counterparts to be able to sell, to be able to grow their businesses, to be able to thrive on our platforms and in our ecosystems. It's the same thing as it relates to visually impaired or hearing impaired drivers or merchants or users to be able to use our products, to be able to use our apps without any barriers. These are the kinds of things that we have and continue to improve on because it's still a long journey for us. But those are just some of the examples.
Thank you. And it's wonderful to hear what already can be done at company level. But I think we all also agree that sometimes the political system needs to create an enabling environment or put in place certain regulations to also enable companies to push for that type of change. I have two questions from the audience, and I think the first one I would like to address to Irene. This is a question coming from Asosiasi LBH APIK Indonesia. Kotimun, I'm not sure whether that is the name of the person posing the question. The question is, currently Indonesia is chosen for the G20 presidency. What is your expectation and recommendation so that the G20 meeting has a positive impact for marginalized women? We're just posing very simple questions here.
It's not simple question.
No, I know.
Let's a minute. Oke, semangat. Bisa dengan mudah saya katakan itu apa namanya? Tentu menjadi tuan rumah untuk G20 adalah suatu kesempatan yang sangat baik untuk Indonesia mewujudkan sebagai negara yang dari negara developing country to developed country, right? Tetapi kita juga perlu tahu bahwa itu ada konsekuensinya yang sangat panjang terhadap hal itu. Jadi yang perlu digarisbawahi adalah bagaimana harapan kita dalam kita menjadi bagian dari G20 adalah implementasi program-program yang digadang-gadang oleh pemerintah sebagai negara maju itu harus merata dirasakan oleh segala lapisan masyarakat, termasuk tadi yang dikatakan adalah marginal women ya, kalau saya tidak salah menangkap. Betul nggak? Ya, marginalized. Jadi saya pikir apa yang selalu dikatakan Presiden Jokowi dengan quote-nya dari Sabang sampai Merauke, dari Mangya sampai Rote, itu adalah keadilan itu sendiri. Bagaimana sebenarnya dalam PR-PR yang sudah diberikan oleh G20 sebagai organisasi kan PR-nya banyak sekali untuk negara peserta. Jadi saya pikir Indonesia harus mampu menjawab, dan yang terpenting adalah jawabannya tidak hanya selepas presentasi untuk menjadi bagian G20. Jawabannya tidak hanya jawaban diplomatis pemerintah saja, tetapi yang lebih penting adalah masyarakat dari segala kalangan dan dimanapun berada, terutama mereka yang berada di wilayah 3T betul-betul merasakan pembangunan itu sendiri. Mungkin itu harapan kami, dan kami di DPR sih akan sangat mendukung hal-hal yang seperti itu dan akan turut mengawasi program-program yang bersentuhan langsung dengan masyarakat.
It takes a little while for me to hear the translations. That's why I'm responding a little slow. And I'm noticing that multitasking with different things in my ears, it's a little bit complicated. So maybe
prinsipnya adalah gini, karena kita sebagai negara itu banyak sekali hal-hal yang kita ratifikasi ataupun kita tanda tangani dalam kesepakatan-kesepakatan gitu. 20 sampai 24 Maret kita akan ada pertemuan di Bali, yaitu IPU Interparliament Union Meetings, di mana itu juga akan mengeluarkan kesepakatan-kesepakatan. Pemerintah menghadiri banyak sekali konferensi, pemerintah menghadiri banyak sekali pertemuan, dan itu mengeluarkan kesepakatan-kesepakatan. Tetapi yang menjadi pertanyaannya adalah apakah kesepakatan itu diimplementasikan dengan tepat? Gitu. Kita ada PR MDGs, kita ada PR sustainable, itu jangan hanya sebatas kesepakatan di atas kertas saja. Itu harapan saya. Mungkin itu secara prinsip dan intinya.
Thank you. And if I understand you correctly, there is an agenda for Indonesia as a country, making sure, and I guess the W20 engagement group has a role to play in that, to also include the voices of parts of Indonesia and groups within Indonesia that perhaps are normally not heard as much as other voices. And then there is the international level, where Indonesia, I think, has also invited constellations like the small island states to again include voices that perhaps normally within also this G20 constellation are not heard as much as other groups. So I think it's interesting to see how in different ways marginalized groups are made part of the process. Thank you. I note that there's some interest in this part of the discussion. I've had more questions on my phone, which was also one reason why I got a little bit distracted. I now have 3 questions that I would like to share with the panel. This is a question for Dari, and it comes from a Dutch organization called Mensen met een Missie, people with a mission. It says, within the GISRA program, together with our Indonesian partners, we are setting up a social media network with young women and men to counter hate speech and bridge differences, with an important focus on empowering young women to speak up. This also brings up issues which are especially important for women. Would you say that social media is also an important media tool for young women? Dari, your comments.
Social media, of course, it's really important right now. I mean, it's people speak in social media, and everyone has, almost everyone, especially the young people, has the social media. So that's really important. And then the existence of these young women groups to fight or against the hate speech or whatever, that's hate speech or hoax or yeah, something like that. It's really important. So I really agree that this movement, it's really needed in the society. Even the media also have, I think it's right now that a lot of media have like a fact check team too, but the community is better to involve to fight or against this folks or the, what you call it, it's not rights news. I forgot to say that.
Mm-hmm. So if I understand you correctly, Dari, you say we all are on social media, so therefore it has a wide reach. It's a powerful tool. At the same time, it's like a double-edged sword because it also has the potential for spreading hoaxes, fake news, etc. But nevertheless, it is an important medium also for young women to spread the message and to share their experiences.
Yeah, because you know that probably it's not many people that really read the mainstream media, and then they just read the social media. So still, the social media is like the strongest weapon to against this kind of fake news or hoax that exists in the community, I think.
Thank you. I have a question now from Letania Belay Jandam, who is going to join us through Zoom. And she is a steering committee member for Voice for Climate Action. Letania, can I ask you to pose your question? We cannot yet hear you. Belum? Can anyone help? I'm not quite sure what the technical glitch. Yes, now we can hear you. Please, Tanya, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy International Women's Day, especially to all of the speakers who have been sharing. My name is Belay. I am an indigenous environmental activist from Indonesia and also a steering committee for the Voices for Climate Action program, which is coordinated by Yayasan Humanis dan Inovasi Sosial affiliated with HIVOS. From working on the ground with rural communities in West Borneo, Indonesia, I have seen how women from marginalized communities such as local and indigenous communities are still often excluded from conversations regarding development and community management. And I wanted to ask that within your roles and power, how do you ensure that throughout the local and regional level, the voices and leadership of women are well represented? And moreover, how do you ensure that, especially in rural areas, women are provided with equitable access to services such as education and healthcare facilities? Thank you.
Thank you, Letania. I believe your first question to some extent overlaps with the question that we have just touched upon. So I propose that we zoom in on the second part of your question, and I think specifically Irene would be addressed, and that is, how do you, in your position, in your role and the power that you have, ensure that marginalized communities, local and indigenous communities, are provided with equitable access to services such as education and healthcare? Just another easy question for you.
Secara singkat jawabannya adalah afirmasi. Jadi afirmasi itu sifatnya bukan mengasihi, tapi afirmasi itu lebih kepada memberikan kesempatan lebih kepada mereka yang tidak mendapatkan kesempatan yang sama. Contohnya dalam soal pendidikan yang ingin saya ceritakan adalah kita punya dana pendidikan terbesar itu beasiswa adalah LPDP dari Kementerian Keuangan, dan di situ selalu menjadi syarat utama adalah pemenuhan angka IELTS ataupun IELTS, kalau IELTS dan TOEFL. Nah, yang selalu saya katakan IELTS yang tinggi ataupun TOEFL yang tinggi tidak akan pernah bisa dipenuhi oleh kami yang berada di Indonesia Timur, dan jangan disamakan syarat-syarat memperoleh beasiswa. Contohnya itu dengan kami yang ada di 3T atau yang di Jawa, karena secara simpelnya gini, kita tidak pernah mendapatkan kualitas pendidikan yang sama dengan yang teman-teman di Jawa ataupun di pulau lain dapatkan. Sehingga afirmasi itu sifatnya adalah keharusan. Dalam segala program pemerintah yang sifatnya dibiayai oleh APBN itu harus selalu mengedepankan afirmasi dalam pendidikan ataupun tadi yang disebutkan adalah kesehatan. Itu adalah salah satu cara supaya kita tidak meninggalkan ataupun melupakan mereka yang membutuhkan. Karena kalau umpamanya semua syarat disamakan ataupun pelayanannya juga disamaratakan, itu tidak akan memiliki dampak keadilan bagi saya. Jadi adil itu tidak harus selalu sama. Jadi afirmasi menjadi jawaban terhadap tantangan ini. Jadi soal pendidikan, soal kesehatan saya pikir sama. Jadi kayak kemarin gitu pembagian vaksin ya di Indonesia Timur, yang harus dipikirkan bukan hanya jumlah kuota vaksinnya. Kita selalu akan mendapatkan kuota yang lebih kecil karena penduduknya. Tetapi yang harus lebih diperhatikan adalah bagaimana vaksin tersebut sampai kepada daerah-daerah pelosok yang bahkan secara infrastruktur itu belum terbangun. Nah, itu adalah afirmasi secara khusus bagaimana willing dari pemerintah ataupun dari DPR sebagai mitra kerja itu harus selalu dikedepankan dalam pemenuhan hal-hal tersebut, karena pasti secara politik dan secara budget itu akan lebih tinggi daripada kita memenuhi kebutuhan kesehatan ataupun pendidikan di wilayah lain gitu. Jadi kata kuncinya adalah afirmasi. Terima kasih. So you know when I answer.
Thank you. Yes, affirmasi, I think in many an instance is the necessary step to get rid of the backlog, because otherwise we cannot really catch up. Before we move to the last part of our conversation, where I will ask you for your commitment, what are you going to do in the year to come? I have a last question from the audience, which I would like all of you to comment on. I think it's quite a provoking question. And it comes from Desiana from Infit. And her question is as follows: the issue of women leadership is also marked by tokenism, as in women being placed in leadership positions more as a symbol than an act of actual change. How do we cultivate a culture of true female leadership where they both have the position and the capability to actually participate in decision-making activities? I think there are quite some layers in these questions. Maybe we cannot delve into all of them, but maybe your initial comments on this, like I said, fairly provocative question. And I'm starting with Putri.
Okay, so as a deaf woman or disabled woman, I actually not really like about tokenism because it's kind of inspiration porn for us, and I don't like it because for me, woman is just woman, whether they are hearing or deaf, we are still women. But how to educate people about women and deaf women, we can involve in anything, to work, to teach, and to do anything, like hearing person also, or non-disabled people. So we just can't just separate between us. I mean, like, oh, you are deaf and I'm hearing person, so we have to make boundaries between us. No. So we have to try to get our rights equal like others for a disabled or non-disabled person. So the important thing is education or understanding between us, I think. Yeah.
A more interaction obviously will help to break those barriers. Thank you, Putri.
Yeah, honestly, as a deaf woman, the communication is very important. So we need access, for instance, through interpreters or note takers. And for instance, when I came here, the guard is using mask. When I tell them that I'm deaf, they're still speaking to me like I'm hearing person. So I try to educate them. And because a lot of people doesn't understand how our communication way, it's very important to understand that deaf person and hearing person has different kind of communication way.
Thank you. Yes, I think we do not necessarily intend to communicate in the wrong way or to respond to you in the wrong way, but it's good to become aware of the things that we might do wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm turning to Tana. I imagine that you thought the question just raised was quite interesting and provocative as well. What is your response to the statement?
To be completely honest, I have and probably could still be a token female in any role or situation that I've been in. But you know what? I think the difference is what I do with it. And I'm okay to be the token woman if I am providing the space for other women to also do the same, to take the advantage of the same opportunities and access that I've been given. I will work my butt off, even if I am the token woman, because I believe that you have to set the bar as high as possible, whether it's for other male peers or other women to follow you, and set really good precedents as best as possible. So in my situation right now, in my role right now, it looks like things like specifically focusing on female team members and colleagues, ensuring that we have the right training programs and policies in place so that women and men can benefit equally from the same opportunities in our working environment. For me, it's investing more time and also the female colleagues that do reach out to me and say, hey, we're facing X and Y challenge. How would you suggest or recommend that we overcome it? I don't have that much experience, but I wouldn't like to say that I'm an expert or anything, but I am a woman. I am a working mom. I can speak from those experiences specifically. I've been a victim of harassment. I know exactly what it feels like to be in that situation where you might be uncomfortable or because of somebody's comment, because of somebody's actions. And so for me, it's really about providing those kinds of real, authentic kind of advice and recommendations to support and to know, I think in a lot of cases that other women around you aren't alone, that they do have support, that they do have people they can talk to. And I think that's been incredibly important. So for me, I guess the headline here is really, yes, I might have been a token woman in a lot of situations before. It's terrible. I hate it. But it's really, for me, what I do with those opportunities to provide and serve for the next generation, for the current and the next generation of women to follow. Because like it or not, without policy, without the right regulations, without companies being forced to do what needs to be done, we still have 135 years to go. So, I'm not going to hold my breath. I'll be long gone. My kids will be long gone by the time we see real gender parity. So for me, it's really about what can I do today for this generation, because I am this generation now, and I want to see something change now. So again, it's, yes, I might be token woman, but yeah, I'm gonna do my very best at making the most of it.
Thank you. I really like your answer, because it makes a difference between what might have been the intention by the person who put you in that position and how you take on the challenge then to really make that leadership position valuable for yourself, but also for many other women within the organization. Thank you. Irene or Dari, any additional comments on this question?
Menurut saya mungkin statement ini keluar karena banyak sekali mungkin yang bias terhadap kepemimpinan perempuan, tetapi pada prinsipnya adalah ketika perempuan diberi kesempatan untuk menjadi pemimpin ataupun berperan aktif di dalam organisasi ataupun pengambilan keputusan publik, yang perlu diketahui bahwa perempuan tidak akan pernah memikirkan dirinya sendiri. Dalam artian perempuan akan hadir sebagai seorang ibu, sebagai seorang anak, ataupun sebagai seorang istri, ataupun sebagai masyarakat yang utuh. Jadi mengapa selalu hadir statement perempuan berdaya, negara kuat? Karena perempuan ketika memiliki peran, dia akan memikirkan banyak sektor. Perempuan ketika memiliki peran, dia akan memikirkan banyak sekali lini. Dan itu yang harus digarisbawahi, yang saya pikir ini harusnya mematahkan statement bahwa perempuan di politik biasanya hanya menjadi simbol. Perempuan di politik biasanya hanya menjadi simbol karena perempuan tidak pernah dianggap sebagai manusia utuh dan merdeka yang memiliki peran yang sama dengan manusia lain. Jadi bukan masalah kepemimpinan perempuan, tetapi adalah bagaimana seorang manusia diberi kesempatan di dalam memimpin sebuah ataupun sesuatu hal. Jadi bagi saya, kalau saya kembalikan kepada lingkup wilayah saya sebagai anggota parlemen di dalam gedung DPR, yang perlu dilakukan untuk mengubah ataupun merubah stigma ataupun statement ini adalah yang pasti anggota DPR perempuan harus memiliki kesadaran yang pertama adalah bersatu dan memahami betul apa yang dimilikinya sebagai kekuatan, sebagai senjata agar kita mampu melawan ketidakadilan gender dalam hal budgeting ataupun policy. Karena bagi saya ketidakpemahaman ataupun ketidakpahaman perempuan terhadap dunianya, karena kita lahir sebagai anak kandung patriarki, tetapi kita bisa memilih menjadi anak durhaka, kan saya pikir seperti itu. Jadi itu tantangannya, sehingga saya pikir forum-forum seperti ini bagaimana satu sama lain perempuan memberikan pandangan ataupun memberikan semangat dari perspektif dunianya, itu bagi saya pribadi ini sangat insightful, sangat memberikan masukan yang oke gitu. Saya juga mungkin berterima kasih sekali gitu karena kaukus perempuan di DPR juga seringkali mendapatkan masukan-masukan dari luar. Contohnya Mbak Tunggal itu selalu memberikan saya masukan mengenai isu-isu perempuan yang mana saya mencoba mendiskusikan dengan teman-teman yang berkaitan khusus dengan isu-isu tertentu. Karena saya di Komisi 1, saya tidak punya wilayah umpamanya membahas mengenai RUU TPKS, tindak pidana kekerasan seksual. Tetapi segala lini masukan, segala masukan dari masyarakat itu bisa kita salurkan. Dan ini kalau tidak ada kesepakatan ataupun kepemahaman yang sama antara anggota parlemen perempuan di gedung DPR ini tidak akan terjadi perjuangan ini. Jadi mungkin itu dari saya bahwa supaya tidak sebatas hanya simbol, ya perempuan juga harus hadir sebagai manusia utuh yang berdaya. Itu, terima kasih.
Thank you. I think you basically underscored also the point that Tana was making. It doesn't matter for what reason you've been put in that position. It's about how you use your position to the betterment of the position of women.
I think I can be friends with Tana because everything she said, I agree.
I think there's a lot of agreement on the stage here this afternoon. In the interest of time, unless Dari, you have something completely different to add to the conversation, I propose that we move to the last bit of this afternoon's talk show, and that is your commitments for the year to come. What are you personally going to do in the year to come to make the issues that we've been talking about this afternoon, the biases that need to be broken, go away? I'm starting with Dari.
Okay. First, it's improving women in the media. I mean, it's like, if I talk about the media, it's the media itself. I mean, it's like in the editorial team, especially in the leadership, in the decision-making process team. And then also in the news or in the article itself, in the media itself, as the sources of the article and the sources of the news. So the improving the representation of women in the media will be important for the media, of course, for us, for women, for media. And for the society, I'm sure, because when a lot more women there, and then media with the gender sensitivity will improve the society too. And then second, of course, the support women in the public space. We have media, we have space that we can expose the success, the story of women, or the diversity in the media. So we're going to do that. And of course, it's really supporting for everyone, like especially women, to join in the media, because, like Temple, when we recruited the new journalists, probably sometimes it's more than 50% women. Mm-hmm. But when it's starting to go up and up and up, and then in the middle, probably it's just less and less women there. So we really want to make that change. So when women get into the media and then keep there and make change, that's I want to do that. And of course, a lot of women in the media want that too.
Sure, thank you, Dari. I'm going to ask the other three panelists to limit your commitment.
Sorry.
to. No.
Can I get one more? Because it's
okay,
really
because you were not able to comment on the other question.
We open for the collaboration to do it, because that Tempo can do that by ourselves. So we need the collaboration with every individual or organization or other media to do that. I think it's.
Thank you so much. And it is in line with Indonesia's motto for the G20: recover stronger, recover together, recover stronger. And indeed, let's try and see where we can complement one another's efforts. Thank you so much, Dari. Can I ask the other three panelists to limit to 2 short statements? And I'm turning to Putri. What is it that you would like to focus on in the year to come? And what is your commitment for the gender equality agenda?
For society, whether they are hearing or deaf, they can give chance for deaf women to be equal to other men, and break the barriers, and also give them access to communicate with others. And we can work together, yeah. And also, for deaf women, we have to keep fight to break the barriers. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Putri, and good luck with the commitments that you intend to work on in the coming year. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tana.
Thank you for supporting me.
Professionally, it's going to push my company to do better, to do more, to be more transparent about where we're at in terms of targets and representation and parity. Personally, this is a hard one. Ini curhat dikit ya. But it's about stopping tying my value to how others see me, what I said before, and really being able to define my self-worth irrespective of how others see me, and knowing that I have a meaningful contribution to make, whether it's at work or at home. But those aren't things that define me. What defines me is myself, and I think really this year is about recovering stronger and recovering better Tana style. So that's my personal.
Thank you, and I think I personally feel inspired. I think I'm going to use that as a commitment for myself also in the coming year. Maybe many of us here in the audience. Thank you, Tana. Turning to Irene.
Ya, the commitment ya. Jadi parlemen itu kan dari kata parle yang artinya bicara. Tetapi kalau kita bicara tanpa mendengarkan, yang kita katakan pastilah hanya sebatas kata-kata atau ucapan kosong. Sehingga komitmen terbesar saya, baik secara pribadi ataupun secara professionally, kalau bahasanya Tana, adalah saya berkomitmen untuk terus mendengarkan masukan, melihat data yang pasti dari segala stakeholder untuk perjuangan-perjuangan di dalam DPR, di dalam gedung DPR. Jadi bagaimana menjadi penyambung suara rakyat yang saya wakili, itu adalah komitmen terbesar saya. Terus mampu mendengarkan sehingga saya bisa berjuang dengan kata-kata saya di dalam gedung itu. Karena alat perjuangan saya adalah kata-kata, dan kata-kata saya akan berdaya jika saya mampu mendengarkan. Mungkin itu. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak to all four panelists. We've come to the end of our talk show. I think I've personally enjoyed, and I hope the rest of the audience as much as I've done, the insights that you've shared with us, the experiences that you've shared, and obviously it still provides a lot of food for thought. This is a conversation that is not over. Like we said at the start of the talk show, it's a conversation that should not be had just once a year. It's a conversation that we need to continue to have with each other as much as possible every day of the week. Thank you so much. I was asked to now ask you to put on your mask so we can have a group picture, because that's a good tradition, I think, in Indonesia, to make sure that we remember in years to come that we've been together here this afternoon. And also, but I'm not sure where those presents are coming from, I would like to hand over a small token of appreciation from the organizers to our four fabulous panelists this afternoon. Let me first give the presents and then the photo. Is that right, Dila? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, I will ask one by one, and I'll put on my mask for you to come forward, and then maybe we can take the picture after that. Irene, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon and for sharing your insights. And can I ask for an applause? And this is a small token of our appreciation. Secondly, very much appreciated your presence, Dari, and also for you, small token of our appreciation. I hope it's not token in terms of tokenism. This is very much a heartfelt thank you for your contribution this afternoon. Putri, same for you. Thank you so much. And I hope that many people will be inspired by what you have been able to do for your community. Tana, good luck with both your personal and your professional commitment for the year to come. Thank you so much. Once again, an applause for all the four panelists. I'm not sure whether the MC is now taking over, whether we first take a picture.
Yeah, I think now it's the time for picture taking.
Okay.
It will be appreciated if Ibu Tunggal also can join them in the stage.
They won't see the cheese if we say
Yeah, probably say 1, 2, 3, cheese.
cheese. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Jumel.
Hand sign.
Okay.
Okay. Let's give a big applause once again to the speaker, moderator, and Ibu Tunggal.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you so much for Ibu Ardi and also the honorable speaker, Irene Diah Putri Entana. I really enjoyed the insightful and also inspiring talk show, and I believe we all do here as well. Thank you very much once again. And thank you also for sharing your experiences, visions, and commitment as role model women leaders in Indonesia. You are allowed to go back to the seat if you would like to.
Thank you. Yeah. And obviously also a great thank you to the ladies behind me.
Let's give a big applause once again to all the teams here. Hi, on behalf of the organizer of this event, Yayasan Hivos, the Netherlands Embassy, and the Ministry for Women Empowerment and Child Protection, would like to express my gratitude to all of you who have joined our event today, physically in person or also virtually. Hopefully, today's insightful talk show encouraged every one of us here to be more committed to breaking the bias for gender equality. Once again, I would like to close this event today with the saying of Happy International Women's Day to all of us. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Wow, that must be a tough job, huh?
Well, I had
sure, but still. My goodness.